Hi guys, and welcome to Module 3B, so my full Python course. Today we're going to talk about file I/O, a very important concept, and we're not going to go into super big depth, but we're going to cover the stuff that you're going to come across most of the time, which is reading it from a file all at once. So just take the contents of a file and get that into Python. There is writing to a file, so basically making a new file or overwriting the name of a file and putting all of the contents into the file. There is also appending a file, which means putting like whatever it had before, and then don't get rid of any of that, but then put more on the bottom of the file. And so everything really is a file. So for the most part, like get away from Python for a moment. In a computer, pretty much everything's some sort of file, which is really just a bunch of text. A TXT file, for example, has text that might look like a human wrote it randomly. It could have stuff like, my name is Greg. Hello. Okay, a CSV file could have something, or it has to look something like this. 456. A JSON, nice, that thinks it's the tuple. So JSON, for example, looks something like this. It would be like a dictionary. JSON and Python dictionaries look basically the exact same thing. They're basically the same thing. And so it might look something like this. All right. Now, we're going to deal with just text files for the moment, but note that the process of opening other files is basically the same thing, except that you know the structure of a file in other ones. So like a CSV, you generally use a different program or a different function to open it because they know that it's comma-separated values like we just saw. For now, we're going to open text and read, write, and append to a text file. So first of all, we're going to make one exist. I do have here something called hi.txt for you, so I actually already created this, but it doesn't have any contents in it at all. So first of all, we're going to read from this empty file, which should show nothing. With open of, I pass it the path, which we'll talk more about later, with open hi.txt, in reading mode, so we're going to read the file as f, this is the convention, and I will just print f. Name r is not defined, you're supposed to put this in quotes, so quotes there, and then print f. Now, this is a text I/O wrapper thing, so if we're actually printing what f is, it is just some sort of reader for Python. It's not the contents of the file. If I print f.read, then that read the file. Did it? Well, actually it did, because hi.txt has nothing in it. I can write to it here, and so I can write hey, and then hello, for example. All right, and then if I save that, then if I read from it now, it says hey, and then hello. Very cool. Most of the time, that's all it's going to be. Note that read reads all of the lines of the file, not one at a time. Assuming the file's not super big, then most of the time you're going to want to just read this thing all at once. And it does return a string. So note if we print the type of this thing, f.read is a string. Now, it's kind of tricky what it actually is, because if you print f.read, note that it prints hey and then hello, which is the string, except there is some sort of weird line thing going on here. Technically, there is a \n here, where it's hey \n hello. In fact, it really is the string of hey \n hello. Where if we call print f.read on this thing, what it's doing is actually trying to display it in a pretty way, meaning we know that \n means a new line, so it means the next line of the file, then therefore this should be the first thing after or on the second line. Python knows that, and so when it's printing it, it's going to say, okay, actually I'm going to show it to you on multiple lines. Except that's kind of tricky for us because we want to know what we're actually reading. And this is what we're actually reading. So most of the time, at least a lot of the time, you're going to want to separate the lines of the file into a list. So you're going to want to have the first line as the first item in the list, the second line as the second item of the list, and so on. In particular, I want to turn this string of hey \n hello, and notice that if I don't write print, then it outputs exactly what it is. But if you write print, then that's when it actually shows the difference. So I want to turn that into the list of, and let me just write it informally. I'll just write an arrow here. This is not Python syntax. This is saying I want to turn this into the string of hey and the string of hello. Let me just copy this list down below. We can do this thing. Oh, that's why. So let me just copy this thing down below. So this string, we can do dot split on \n. And that does exactly that, where it takes all of these \n's, it gets rid of them, and it makes each of these an element in the list in order. So now what we can do is if we do, if we had a list, say x is equal to, actually, we'll just make it all at once. So we'll say lst is equal to, instead of print f.read, we are going to do f.read, which returns the string, except then if we do dot split on \n, then we have this list. And that should create this into the environment. So lst is that list. Now I'll get rid of this so it's a little less confusing looking. But that's the idea, is that a lot of the time you're going to want to read the file in at once, and if it's not super big, you can store it all in this Python list and have the separate lines as so. And that is file reading. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about writing and appending to a file.